documentary review podcast. Jonathan and I participate in some extreme budgeting as we discuss the 2013 documentary Living on $1. Welcome to the show. I am PT.
I'm Jonathan. Glad you guys join us this week.
Indeed. We've had some heart-rending technical difficulties this evening, but you know what? We're here for you. You valuable listener, you. How's it going, Jonathan?
Good. Been a long, tiring day. My son, I still made the podcast. My son broke his collarbone for a second time tonight.
Oh no!
I know, right?
Is it like the same? Does it related to the first? Was it weekend totally by the first time or what?
No, different spot. Same collarbone, but like first time he broke it, getting knocked off a bunk bed and bouncing off a wall. Tonight he broke it by, I don't know how he pulled this one off. He was swinging, so I don't know if he was trying to like do a jump or some kind of a move off the swing or whatever. But landing did not did not work out so well. Same collarbone broken.
Bad.
Yep,
that's a bummer.
So, yeah, but at least you're not leaving. We know the drill this time around.
Yeah, you have some serious experience in that area.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move from tragedy to documentary here. Tell us about our documentary this week.
All right. So this week we have Living on $1, which is the journey of a few students who go to see what life is like in third world countries living on $1 a day. So they kind of commit to going to Guatemala for a summer, living in a remote village, and trying to experience life as the locals with, the extremely low budget of $1 per day to get by on. And it's kind of about, that's the real premise of the documentary. But for me personally, it was a documentary about the way youth sees the world and how they try and change it. And that part of it was cool for me.
Cool. All right. I think that was a good synopsis. Did you like it?
I did like it. Did you?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I had a kind of a weird experience with it.
Okay, that's interesting because I thought we might differ on this one. I was ready for you to be like,
no, you know what? I really didn't like it. Like at the beginning, I was like, and I don't know why it was, but like I watched the first half hour or so, and then I stopped for like a day, I think, and then I watched the second half, and my opinion on it completely changed, and I'm not sure why. Well, I think I can articulate why as we get into it. But at first, I was like, "Man, these are a bunch of idiots." I was not a big fan at first, but it definitely won me over. So, and I think
interesting.
I think part of the reason I liked it was that, like, I've been, how old people, like get really really stressed out by the news. I've been experiencing my first twinges of that, like recently, just like with this upcoming presidential election and the like Republican debates that have been going on. Like I've been getting like seriously like worked up about it and like stressed out and like So it was cool I think this documentary chilled me out a little bit. I was like, all right, this is a different view of the world that I need. Some people try to do some good here and not saying how America is crappy and all that stuff.
Right. I really liked it because I really related. I mean, like now I'm, old and have a very different world perspective than these kids do. But one, it made me hopeful for my kids. Like I would be really proud of either of my children if one day they came to me and they're like, "Dad, we're gonna go live in Guatemala for a summer because we want to, just because we want to make a difference in the world and see what it's like for the impoverished." Masses out there. And I mean, in a lot of ways, I think that's just being silly and young, but in a very good way, and that's what I kind of liked about this. And I kind of saw, and it seems like something I would have done when I was that age. I would have been all about it, like all gun-ho, like let's go change the world or fix Guatemala, and that would have been my kind of thought process. But it was cool. I liked it. Like the documentary for me was more about the documentarians than their subject matter. But I mean, that was cool too.
Gotcha. One interesting thing, totally not on the topic of the documentary, but one thing that it made me think of is, man, like this was clearly like a pretty low budget affair, other than that they had to like get to Guatemala and stuff like that. They obviously spent some money at that, but as far as just like film equipment and stuff like that, it was, you know, they did not have like a ton of equipment. And I was thinking about like how, man, like when we were like college types, like people would go do crazy stuff, but then they'd like come back the next year and you'd be like, what'd you do over the summer? And they'd be like, oh, it was crazy. I went to Guatemala. Now people are like, hey, I can get a $300 camera and make a documentary about it.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And you know what? There's a good chance that they didn't even buy that stuff. You know, they probably checked it out from the school.
Yeah,
If
maybe.
they went up to the school and they're like, "Hey, we want to do this film project on," you know, because two of them were film students, so I'm sure they're like, "Hey, can we check out two cameras for the summer?" You know, they're, you know, chill out film teacher, you know, professor was probably like, "Yeah, take them." So yeah, pretty low budget.
Yeah, I don't know when I should drop this bomb, because this was something I learned after the documentary. Totally changed the way that I saw the documentary. So I'm not sure if I should reveal this or like wait and drop the bomb at the end. I don't know.
I don't know. You're kind of committed now because I'm really curious about what this bomb is.
All right. So when I watched this documentary, I saw it as these are, you know, just some idealistic kids doing this crazy summer thing. They're going to go and live their lives or whatever. So they filmed this in 2010, and now they do this for a living. Like right now, they're living in with Sudanese refugees in Jordan, like making another documentary. And they've made a couple other things like that. They just like are they've. I mean, this is their that was 5 years ago, and they've just been doing this kind of stuff ever since. Like they've really dedicated their lives to it. So it wasn't just like a one-off kind of idealistic college student kind of thing. This is their life now.
Right, but this one probably was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
In 2010 when they did this, I got the impression, at least maybe I'm wrong, but that's what it was that, you know, young idealist college thing. And then you know what I mean, like one, the quality of it turned out really well. I mean, from one, the footage. I mean, there's some beautiful shots of Guatemala and beautiful shots of the, you know, the village and life and nice interviews. And I mean, it was a short, you know, it was a whole 8 weeks cut down or whatever it was. Yeah, I think 8 weeks, 7 weeks cut down into, you know, 59 minutes. So it was a short documentary, but it was loaded with some good imagery and well done, especially for students. And
sure,
I can see where that launched a career. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was just cool to me that that this wasn't just like some passing thing where they're like, "Hey, let's do this for a semester and then go do something else." They're like, "Man, they're into it now, man." They're into it. And actually, well, I'll reveal this later. I'm saving another bullet in the tank.
All right.
So all right. So one of the first things that annoyed me at first, but later I was like, "This is actually really." I'm glad that they did this, was like the fairly complicated like budgeting thing that they had with their like draw it from a hat, how many dollars they would get that day, and all that stuff. I was like, oh my God, can they make this any more ridiculous and complicated? But as it went on, I was like, okay, well, I'm glad I did that because it's cool.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually, when they first started doing that, I thought, you know, it'd be a lot simpler. Just work as a day laborer.
Right.
Then your experiment is full on real. You're like,
Sure.
oh, well, geez, I hope we can get day labor work because that's how we have to live. And then it would have, you know, then the math would have worked out perfect. And been like, well, crap, 3 days, no work. So, I mean, I wish they would have addressed that. Like, I was wondering, like, why didn't they do that? I mean, certainly they could day labor. I mean, like, it's essentially like moving rocks and digging ditches and stuff. They've got the talent for it. And maybe there was a reason, you know, maybe they could have been like, well, there's not very much work at all for this village of, you know, 300 people. Right. So we don't want to take away work from the people that truly need it. But I would have liked that explanation. Or maybe the explanation was, it was a lot easier to bring $245 and then randomly draw it out of a hat.
Right. Yeah, I think it could have been taken away from not wanting to take away work. It could have been like a big part of their thing was they wanted to study and interview people and stuff like that. That's pretty much what they did with their days. And also, like I saw,
I'm going to go back to that, but keep going.
Okay, I saw a that Morgan Spurlock. He's got that show where he does like a different thing each day. He went and did like picking oranges with a bunch of like migrant workers or whatever. And he was like, "Oh my god, this is so hard." He was like so terrible at it. He was like, and like everyone was getting pissed at him because they're like, "Yeah, dude, you're totally strolling up the thing, and you're totally messing up our game and all this stuff." He was like, "Yeah, everyone thinks that just work anyone could do, but man, it is really hard. It takes takes a while to get the skills down, I guess, for that." So anyway, maybe I think they would have sucked at day labor if if they would have done
it. Maybe that's true. But like, and then when you said, they spent their days like interviewing and studying and things like that, I was really curious. Like that was one of my notes, was like, because they didn't day labor or anything. I was like, what did they do all day? I mean,
right.
I guarantee they didn't have 12 hours of interviews every day for
right.
I mean, like they're once a week it sounded like they made their trek into town, but that leaves 6 days and a lot of time.
I don't know. The college guys, they can kill some time and just mess around. That's what college students do.
I guess maybe I'm just rusty at that. So
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and part of it too is I think they were hungry and lethargic and all that stuff. Like not to reference another TV show, have you ever seen that show, Naked and Afraid?
I haven't. I know of it, but I've not seen it.
All right. Well, they like I got really into it for a couple weeks and watched a bunch of episodes, and pretty much like the best people like at survival, because like they take them out to this remote area and they have to survive for however many days it is, 40. No, I don't think it's that long. I think it's like 3 weeks maybe. But the best people are make for the worst TV, because like the best people are like make a shelter and like lay in that shelter for like 21 hours a day, and then 22 hours a day, and then they're like, yeah, they have like a really efficient, like spend 2 hours gathering enough food for that day or whatever, and then go back to the shelter and lay down and conserve their energy. That's like the best survival technique or whatever if you don't have a lot of food. Makes for terrible TV. So I don't know, maybe they laid around a lot.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. So going back to the terrible food, and like, again, this is one of those things where I was like, this kind of drove me crazy. And like, this was, at least this made me, is why I kept thinking like they're so young and naive or whatever too, is like, if you would throw me into that village and been like, you got to survive on $1 a day, I guess I would have taken out the initial loan to buy it, because they bought like a house and a plot of land.
Right.
After that, I mean, every shot of everywhere they were at, I was like, there's just insanely abundant natural resources all around them. They're like, the most expensive thing is firewood. We got to save up for the firewood. I was like, you are surrounded by trees. Buy an axe or a saw and you have firewood forever. There is just tons and tons of vegetation everywhere. And they're like, well, we're starving. And I was like, there are lakes and rivers. I guarantee there's tons of animals. There's fish. There are plants everywhere. I guarantee that 90% of those plants all around you can eat and live like a king. You should be fat in this area. I mean, literally overweight. There's so much food and so much abundance all around you. So I mean, like, and like that made me kind of wonder, like, they're looking at like, how do we get these people to, get more money and become more financially stable? How do we show them how to save and manage their money and get more than $1 a day and advance themselves? And my thought the whole time was like, well, we screwed them by trying to westernize them in the beginning, because I guarantee 200 years ago that same village was like, oh, it's super easy life. We have an abundance of everything we could possibly need except medicine. I mean, they probably had a crappy, doctors or whatever. But other than that, I'm sure they were like, yeah, of course we have tons of food. Just go fish. It takes like 6 minutes because there's like 300 of us and 50 million acres of water. So it's not overfished at all. We can hunt. I'm sure people lived in those jungles forever, and they were, I'm sure, did fantastic. And we've kind of, I think this whole thought of $1 a day is just taken away from that. It's like, forget the $1 a day. Go back to the basics.
So, all right, let me understand. So is your theory that they forgot how to fish and hunt? They used to do that and they forgot how?
Yeah, I mean, like, to a large degree for sure, that they, or at least given up on it or tried to shift gears. But it seems like that would be the much, much more efficient way to do it. Because again, if you go back, I'm sure, whatever, not that far, 200-300 years ago, there was no market to go buy beans at.
I'm sure there was markets.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe there were markets or whatever, but I'm sure people didn't care as much, especially in the outskirts of towns. Maybe you went to markets for the things you couldn't truly get. But like bananas, I'm sure you could probably just like stroll through the jungle long enough to find bananas, right? I mean,
I
maybe
don't
I'm
know,
way.
dude. I think these people are probably like really good at living in the this area that they've lived in for
Right. That
however long and like getting resources from it. I'm sure they're
so
not just like walking past like tons of bananas, being like, "Shit, where do I get bananas from?"
right. Well, I
Totally,
mean,
I looked up and saw those bananas.
I mean, I guess I guess, and maybe there's a whole bunch of factors going into play that I don't know about, but it certainly seemed, in every way that like, yeah, like you could just live off that land like relatively easily.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, right? Didn't it seem that way? Didn't you think
No,
that?
I never thought that once. I'm like, well, I'm sure like the people who live there know how to get the most out of their area.
I mean, you'd think so, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I guess I don't know like the year-long climates and things like that, or if there's like some kind of I can't imagine there was like a government influence over what they could or could not do out in that remote jungle.
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Like,
sure. I'm sure
like
they
you know what I
can.
mean? I doubt anyone was like, "Do you have a gaming license to catch that fish?" Or "Do
Right.
you?"
Yeah, I'm sure they can hunt or hunt and fish as much as they want, probably.
Right? I mean, like no joke, out in Colorado. Like, maybe that's where my mind's at. Because like literally in 2 days, I'm about to go on a 10-day hunting trip out in the middle of nowhere in Colorado. And like even when I'm on that trip, like certainly I always think like, oh yeah, I mean like I could survive indefinitely out here, especially if there are no rules. I mean like I couldn't because if I took a deer and an elk out of season, I would go to jail.
Right.
But if those weren't the rules, I mean like yeah, I could build a shelter and just live there. Be done. I'd feed myself forever and be fat. I mean even in the cold, you could still build fires and cover yourself with deer skin. I mean it seems. I mean, and that's not like a unique idea. It's what everyone did for pretty much the history of man up until the last couple hundred years. Um, I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. Agriculture has been around for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, and so have cities and so have civilizations. But I mean, like, but all throughout human history, and even like currently, that scenario exists all over the world of people that actually are just self-sufficient, live off the land. Um,
Sure.
and in some lands, I think that's not realistic. If you live in a harsh desert environment, I doubt I mean, maybe it's theoretically possible, but realistically, it's probably pretty impossible. You could starve to death really easy or die from a million different reasons. But like if you live in a lush rainforest, it just seems like there's animals everywhere. I'm sure that thing is just littered with animals of all kinds from frogs and amphibians to reptiles to birds to mid-sized jungle creatures to big jungle creatures. I mean, that's food chain, man. There's that you can eat all that stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah, I
Um,
don't know. I just gotta assume that the people who've lived there and have lived there for many, many generations know more about you than you and I about the
but
living of
maybe,
their
but
land.
why didn't the college kids go for that? I mean, that would have been my go-to if I would have like if I would have started off there, I would have been like, okay, well, first off, I'm gonna get a fishing pole. That would be my first dollar spent. They're like, well, okay, now I've got the food thing covered. And nobody mentioned like, and especially because they kept showing pictures of these huge bodies of water and huge like
Right.
jungle scapes. I was like, and then the firewood thing really killed me. I mean, I literally grew up chopping firewood, and I was like, get an axe, man. You got cords and cords and cords of wood around
Right.
you. I mean, like, yeah, you got to dry it out for a couple of weeks before you can use it or whatever. But firewood problem solved, man. No problem.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that one.
Yeah, there was just tons of stuff where I was like, why worry about the dollar? You've got everything you need.
Right. Um. So far, your take seems to be these people have got it pretty good actually in Guatemala.
No, yeah, I mean, more or less. I don't think it was like yeah, I mean, I think when I watched it, like, it really made me think that everyone, lives in the exact same manner, no matter what you give them or how much abundance they have. Where, like those people had like what anyone in America would just be like, oh my God, that's, basically being almost homeless and blah, 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 and like such a low standard, economically compared to what anyone in in a first world country really has. But we all act exactly the exact same way they were, where everybody was just like, oh, I just need like a little bit more, and like, I just want a little bit more money and a little bit more of this. And they were happy with the exact same like comparative things, like they, for them it was like, oh my God, I got a stove as opposed to cooking over an open fire. Ah, awesome. I'm still like 2 years later, I'm still super psyched about that. This stove is amazing. you know and I mean, Americans do the same stuff. We're like, oh my gosh, oh geez, I got like a crappy little economy car that sucks. Oh, I got a nicer car. Oh, now I'm super happy about it for a while until that gets old, and then I need something else to make me happy. But you could see it was like the same process. But the thing that I thought was different about the Guatemalan villages was, I think, the more materialistic stuff you peel away, they were very much in tune with their community and their neighbors, and really cared for each other in ways that I think we typically don't in America. So I think that they don't necessarily have it any worse than we do. I mean, we have obviously tremendous more convenience, and some things that are like legitimately very, very much like life improving things like medicine. We have that, and that is a big deal.
Right.
Um, but as far as like daily life goes, like I don't think being like I would trade up for Guatemalan villager. I mean, like that doesn't sound like a bad life to me, other than the medicine thing. I'd be like, oh yeah, live in this beautiful lush landscape. And like, yeah, you got to struggle to get by. We make ourselves struggle to get by just as much in America. I mean, we cause the problem because we have everything we could ever possibly want or need, but we still make it so we have to struggle and have stress and burdens of finance and all this stuff. So we put ourselves in the exact same situation, almost universally.
Very interesting, because it seems like you and I had the exact opposite reaction to this thing. Like I was like came with it definitely like, wow, you know what? I never thought of extreme poverty like that. It's actually like way worse than I thought.
Really?
Yeah, and like the big thing I think about it is simply just like the lack of choice in life. Like you have no choice in what your life is going to be when you're in poverty. Like you, if you want to go be a villager in Guatemala, you can go do that tomorrow.
It's
That's
true.
totally your
4 kids
choice.
just did it.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing in life, is just the agency and the freedom to choose what kind of life you want. I mean, it took me a long time in life to find a job that fulfilled me, and now I found a job that fulfilled me, because there's like 80 zillion jobs that I could try in my society. Whereas like if I was there, like there's no choice. I would never be able to find that thing that I'm like really good at and be fulfilled in that particular way. If and maybe I know what I want to be, like that chick who wants to be a nurse, but oh, guess what? You can't. You have one life that you have to live this one basically this way. You don't have the choice that we have, and I think that's the main thing that money buys us, is like we can have any life we want basically.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I somewhat agree with that. But I mean, even I think a lot of the choice we have too is an illusion anyway. I mean, like, okay, yeah, yeah, we could, like, theoretically, you're like, yeah, we could pack up and move to Guatemala tomorrow and become Guatemalan villagers. But could you really do that? I mean, you've got a wife and responsibilities and family and ties and connections, and you know, I mean, like, you say you could do it, but you really, I mean, like, yeah, I guess we could in more of a sense than someone from Guatemala could be like, I want to just move to America and live in the
Right. That's
suburbs.
like it's like physically possible for us to do it
Right, it is
any moment.
physically possible, but I mean,
Works
like,
for us.
it's just as unlikely that we would do that. I mean, like, you're right. Like, logistically, it is more possible, but we have just as many social ties and mental barriers and social barriers that it would make it almost impossible to do for anyone to actually do it.
I,
Um,
yeah, I don't know. I think the whole thing about, like, I just don't like the whole thing about, oh yeah, their life is totally good too, because like I think it's just us in a richer country as a way for us to just like get rid of our guilt of like, hey, we could be helping people. We're not be like, oh yeah, this is a
really,
simple way of life, is totally fine or whatever. We don't have
yeah,
to help these people. They're good.
I don't think so. I mean, I think we hurt more than we help in a lot of ways. Like again, I would say that by coming in and being like, yeah, oh look, you're living on $1 a day, you're doing it all wrong. You need to make more money and strive to, have more money and more stuff and all that. I think that's the wrong way. I think that's meddling and just projecting what we perceive as a successful and happy life onto a different culture. I don't think there's necessarily any value in that. You know, yeah, and I mean, like, I don't think there's any. I don't think it's correct at all to assume that the correlation of money and happiness exist.
No, I'm not. Well, to a certain point, I think it does. Like to a certain point where you can living in extreme poverty is like I would say is objectively worse than not living in extreme poverty. Like there's a point where like money doesn't buy happiness once you've taken care of your basic needs and are going to live the same length of life and all your medical stuff's taken care of and all that stuff. But when you're talking about extreme poverty, I think it's just an easy excuse to be like, oh well, that's just a different way of life. That's just as happy.
Yeah.
Like
I
it's
mean,
okay that they don't have clean water or anything.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I guess I disagree with that. I think, I really legitimately think that, you're certainly probably less likely to live a rich and fulfilled life in America than you would be in a Guatemalan village. Um, I mean, obviously there are definitely pros and cons to both. Um, but I don't think one is the right answer. I don't think like if we put everyone on planet Earth in suburbia, then that's the answer. That's the correct path of life.
Yeah,
I don't think it is.
I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying like, hey, it'd be cool if this chick who wanted dreamed of going to nursing school could get a $500 loan to go to nursing school or whatever. Adding, hey, it'd be cool if various villages could have clean water that don't have clean water. I'm not talking about transporting everyone, but I do agree that we can definitely mess up other societies by meddling or trying to make it too westernized. But
Right.
we could definitely help without westernizing it.
Right. Well, like one example is even in this documentary. So those four college students only were there for 56 days or whatever. But when they were there for a few weeks, the cameramen who couldn't understand Spanish were like, "Hey, I could do this forever. 2 weeks, 2 years, whatever. No big deal. Living on $1 a day is not that big of a deal.
Right.
I've adjusted to it and we figured it out." And that was after they really hadn't figured it out. You know what I mean? I'm sure their version of having figured it out, they'd figured out how to survive, and obviously survived to the point where they were like, "Oh yeah, but they, had they stayed there, I think they would have started to, they hadn't gotten to their potential yet. They could have gotten way, way better at living on $1 a day and taken it to a much higher level."
I go exactly the other way with it, where I think those guys are like the idealist idiots or whatever. These guys were like, "Oh, this isn't this bad. I could do this forever." Or, "Oh, okay. How about the first time you get sick?"
Right.
There's like a million things like that. It's not just the medical care. Like, "Oh, you can do it forever." "Oh, okay, cool. You're no opportunities for you. You're living this up forever. You want to do something else? Well, you can't. Guess what?"
Right. And I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, like, the, it's certainly harder, but I mean, like, you can, like, the one guy in the village went and got a job. You know what I mean? He went into town and got a job. It looked like he was like a janitorial job or whatever. But and like the other girl was going to nursing school and will potentially, maybe right now she's a nurse. Who knows if she completed it or not? I'm just saying those opportunities are there. I mean, there's always a next level. If you're no matter what level you start at, there's always a next level, and it's completing those goals that I think are fulfilling. If they're different goals than we have, because everything's just assumed. I mean, like even now, like graduating from college in the United States is the equivalent of nothing now. It's just it's expected. Your child will graduate from college. Our generation it was expected that we would go to school and get a college degree. But if we backed up, 80 years ago, if you got a college degree, that was amazing. You would accomplish something very special. You would done a major goal, and that was something amazing, and you could feel good about that your whole life. And now it's just like, oh, I got a college degree, and everyone in the room's like, well, obviously, we all have college degrees. Or you know what I mean? That's not like something to be proud of, and it wasn't a goal in life anymore. Now we have to come up with different goals and different things, and our society just changed the rules. But the things that used to be very important and very special are now worthless, in any real way. So I mean, like, I think, yeah, obviously, like, becoming a nurse there is a huge deal. That's an amazing thing, an amazing accomplishment. 100 years from now, that village will probably be like, well, yeah, what is the big deal? You're a nurse. Anybody can become a nurse if you want to become a nurse. I mean, things change, but I think that the root of people stays the same. And I think the root of people, for for living a life that's worth living, it doesn't necessarily have to be you don't need any money for that. You don't need $50 a day. I mean, granted, like the one big deal is medical, you know, because that does obviously make a true difference if you get pneumonia and you die versus pneumonia and you can go to a hospital and get medicine and live. Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's, to me, there really is something to the whole thing of like we each have like a different unique skill set and something that we're good at, and by doing that thing that we're really good at is part of how we get fulfillment and fulfilled in life. You know, whether it's you do that professionally or you don't. Like for me, I write. I definitely do not make hardly any of my income writing, but I live in a society where I'm able to do that. Whereas, you know, when you live in a society like them, you know, the people who have skills that are not, you know, hunting, gathering, farming, are not going to be able to experience that aspect of fulfillment, that being personally fulfilled in that way.
maybe. I mean, they. I mean, the one girl, you know, weaved or whatever. Maybe she liked doing it. Maybe she hated it. I'm sure they still like. I mean, they didn't dive into the culture, you know, beyond the financial burdens of where they lived, but they never went in. You know, they never said, "What do these people do all day?" Because I mean, like a lot of them don't work every day. Well, that means they have all day long to do something, and it's probably spend it with their family or, you know, I don't know what they do. I wish they would have covered it, but it's something we would never have here. I mean, like, there's no, you know, I mean, like, you have to go through Herculean efforts for the average, you know, American family to take a week vacation or, you know, to actually spend some time away from your work and your job that you're not. I mean, we're very much the opposite end of the spectrum where it's not like, oh, we might have work today. It's like, well, you know, I will probably dedicate all my waking hours for at least 5 to 7 days a week at my profession. And I think a lot of us lost in that. And and that's something they don't have there. I mean, that's a huge advantage over our society.
Sure.
Um, and I mean, I think that's good that you've, you know, tried to seek out and find something and have successfully found something that you find fulfilling in a you know professional kind of manner. But I would say that most people don't have that. You know, they work a job that they don't find fulfilling. And I mean, yeah, yes, there are, you know, anyone can try and find that at some point in their life, and I think some people do, some people don't. But again, I don't, you know, I see so many people that are just like essentially miserable, and they have lots of stuff, lots of money, and lots of possessions, and live. I mean, I think everyone in America lives an amazingly spoiled life, if you will. We have so much, you know, hot air conditioning in the summer, heat in the winter, hot
Sure.
showers, running water, indoor plumbing. I mean, things that are like just amazing that we just take for granted. They're our daily things. Um, but I don't think even with all that, you know, people mope around on Prozac all the time. You know what I mean? They're just like basket cases because they can't deal with the world around them. And I think you would probably have less people moping around, being depressed, getting on prescription drugs, you know, doing all that stuff in the Guatemalan village. I think overall, they, you know, when you have a simpler life, you have a better, you know, a clearer vision of what's important and what matters in life, and a better shot at actually being truly happy than one that's masked in, you know, an ever-ending, you know, race to a goal that doesn't exist, and that's kind of the basis of an American culture.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing against a simpler life at all. I'm just arguing against it being living in extreme poverty where, you know, if you get sick, you have to decide, am I going to get medical treatment or not? And if you want medical treatment, there's no way you're going to get a loan for that. So you got to go around and beg all your friends and family to potentially give you some money to get it done or whatever. Um, that's like, I agree with you. The money is not like the answer, but a certain amount of money I think is potentially the answer. Like a small, there's like a basic level of being able to meet your needs that that's is good.
True. I do remember. I can't remember. I was watching a thing on money and happiness, and that was kind of what you just said. Their basic point was, you know, if you go and ask someone who's living under a bridge, if money can buy happiness, you'll get a much different answer than if you go and ask Bill Gates if money can buy the happiness.
Right.
Because I mean, yeah, obviously you need to meet your basic survival needs before before you can say money doesn't buy happiness.
Right. Right.
So I'll give you that, but I guess I still thought it was meddling a bit, to go in and be like, what you need here is money. Maybe what you need here is a doctor in every village, or some medical journals, or a roaming physician, or something like that. So you can bring that one aspect of medicine to, to people that don't have it. And the rest of it I thought was like, oh, stupid,
Yeah, I felt like they went into it with like trying to figure out what the problem was, and that was part of why I didn't like it at the beginning. I was like, I thought it was going to be more like that, like they were going to try to fix everyone. But I feel like at the end they came out of it and like, well, it's a really complicated problem, and they didn't have any like they weren't trying to. I guess they were trying to teach someone English, but they weren't like didn't seem like they were trying to teach them all like budgeting methods or anything like that. They seemed to be
Yeah, I think that might have been a little bit of how they went into it. Like they were like, oh, maybe we can do that. Maybe we can, and it was really like a social experiment that they started off with, and I think it became a lot more to that than to them than that. And actually, obviously, I guess it really did, because they went on to dedicate their next 5 years of their lives to this kind of thing. So it wasn't just a social experiment by the end, where they wanted to see how villagers, did they budget money, did they save, what did they do, did they just scrape by? Because that was their premise at the very beginning.
right. And one thing I thought, so this out of all the documentaries we've seen, there's any of these like documentaries with the social aspect, seems like they always put like a website to go to at the end and like find out you can help. This is the first time I've ever done that, because I was like, oh, I want to see what's
Oh,
up with that. See, and I was thinking about, man, maybe I can help. But all right, this is my complaint. Like they didn't really have any ways to help on the website. The website was basically like their film company and their other films.
oh,
But the one thing I thought that they would talk about, because I've heard a lot about it before, is I know there are like charitable organizations that you can fund microloans to people, like put in $100 or whatever, and get your $100 back in 6 months or whatever, that kind of thing, to
huh.
fund microloans for villagers. So I was like, oh, maybe I should do that. It seems like those loans really help those.
Yeah, it did seem. Yeah, like that was something else that I was really torn on. Was they're like, oh yeah, these people all did great things with their loans. And I mean, like, I don't know anything about like you said, maybe they're just like, Americans throw money into a pool that goes to these people, and if you don't get your $100 back, then no big deal.
Right.
That's obviously not why your average American would, they're not looking for a return on an investment. It's just a
Right.
nice thing to do. But like, I kept thinking about like the company store when they were talking about these loans, like,
Right.
literally like the old days where people would essentially become enslaved to the company store, because they would get these loans, and like, they'd never truly be able to pay them back. And I was like, man, is that what these people really need, is a line of credit? That seems like
Right.
it could, like, I mean, like, if it works the way they're talking about, where it's like, oh, I got my line of credit, now my house is fixed, and yeah, I was like, that looks all good.
Yeah, there was not a lot
But
of details.
yeah, there wasn't the details of like, now I got to pay back $10 a month, so I can't feed my family for the next 4 years because of the interest. It's like, and I mean, like, I got the impression that it wasn't like that. Like you said, that bank wasn't about making money. It was about bringing funds to people that normally wouldn't have access to them. And if that's the case, then that's cool. But I was a little worried, like,
Yeah.
I had my little
Like
skepticism goggles on for that. I was like,
it's
seems like it
like a
could.
payday loan place or something.
Right. I mean, like, maybe not that bad, but something to that extent. Because I mean, like, even like credit is it's a, credit and leveraging funds is certainly an economic tool that can be used, but not without a fairly high understanding of economics. I mean, like that. I mean, that's why there's a million 24-year-olds running around with a mountain of credit card debt that have no idea what happened to them,
Right.
because they didn't truly understand, like, how do I leverage money to my advantage. And if you don't understand that, you shouldn't have credit, because it will not work out for you.
Right.
So I mean, like, again, the theory of it, if they, you know, like I like the idea of, yes, of course, these, you know, if someone needs a loan and wants to take it out and to better their lives, yeah, that's great. But is that how it's working, or is it like they're running around like, oh, I used to make 12, or, you know, $30 a month and be able to get by and survive, and you know, but now a third of my income every month, $10 goes to paying this loan, and I'm
Right.
dying.
Could be. Yes.
Could be, yeah. So that made me nervous. I was like, "Eesh, lines of credit. I'm not ready to support that for anybody."
All right.
But
Good deal. So the other bullet I was going to talk about that I've learned about these guys is they did a follow-up documentary on that woman who wanted to go to nursing school.
oh yeah,
So they so you can, and it's like out in the film festival circuit right now. She's going to she I think it follows her through like high school. She has to go like graduate high school and then go to nursing school. So I'll watch that in the future.
cool. I'd at least like to see the bullet points from it. I don't know if she made it. It's a nurse.
Yeah. And now, like I said, they're living in a refugee camp.
Good for them.
So
It's
yeah,
good. I think, yeah.
I guess so. Cool. So that is what's this movie called? Living on a Dollar.
Living on a dollar.
Living on a Dollar. How many stars you can give this bad boy?
I'll give it a 4. I liked it for totally different reasons than you did.
Yeah, I'll give it 4 as well. I think it
Yeah.
provoked some good discussion, if nothing else.
Yeah.
All right. So next week you're out. Is that right?
I'm out. I'm out next week. I'm be gone. I'm gonna
All
be
right.
living on $0. Thank you very much for 10 days.
Except for all your gear and everything that you bought with many dollars.
Yeah, that was definitely more than $0.
All right. So next week I have a guest host, and it is my wife. We're
Ooh,
gonna be doing a little couple cast,
nice.
and we are gonna be doing. Hold on, we're doing a documentary called. It's called The Galapagos Affair. It's about a group of British people who moved to the Galapagos Islands and tried to start a colony, and it ends in death and horribleness, I believe. Supposedly a very interesting, little-known piece of history. So we'll be watching that and talking about it, and it should be interesting. I don't know if we're going to do like a video hangout, so it might just show up on the audio feed, but we'll see.
All right.
Otherwise, we'd just be like sitting next to each other, and be like,
dude, I think it would be awesome. You can sit in different rooms. And
that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my related recommendation this time is the podcast Death, Sex, and Money, a podcast about things that we don't talk about enough but should. It's their little tagline.
Ooh.
So they talk about like they have really fascinating episodes. So they have like I heard a really interesting one with a mortician where they're talking about like what it's like to be like the grim realities of being a mortician. They had one about my favorite episode was they interviewed this dirty cop and talked to him. He talked to like how he started to get on the take and like slippery slope of how he started taking bribes and stuff like that.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
Wow. Was he like, I assume, anonymous on the?
No, he's like he'd been to prison in his
okay. Gotcha.
So that was fascinating. Yeah, and they have like they have one like with a prostitute and stuff. So very interesting. I recommend it. Death, Sex, and Money.
Cool. That actually sounds really interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah. All right. So we will be back next week, and then Jonathan, you'll be back, and I don't know.
Yeah, I'll be back the week after that. Yeah.
Do we want to pick the documentary now or no?
You know what I want to do, and maybe this is you don't have you can think about it and not take this right away. But I want to do the Burt's Buzz documentary. I had somebody who was talking about it the other day, and it really got me intrigued about it. I haven't seen it yet.
We can do that one.
All right. Well, yeah, cool. Well, I'll probably, like I said, I'm going to be off grid until next Sunday. So when I get back from that, I might even need a reminder of like, what were we doing in Documentary World? So
all right. Well, maybe you'll have a big beard by then, and that will remind you. I
would imagine I'll have a small beard by then, but yes, I probably will.
All right. Well, I hope we do the podcast while you still have a beard before you shave.
Yeah. It's on Tuesday. I don't know if I can make it through a day of actual like business, 2 days of the business world, but a scraggly
You could
not,
do it. You could
yeah.
do it. They'll be like, man, this dude's manly. I gotta deal with him.
All right.
All right. We will talk to you next time. Thanks for watching. This is PT. Keep it real.
This is Jonathan. I'll see you in 2 weeks.